The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you to like and share them on social media, including Facebook. It's time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show, hosted by the one and only Sue Ellen Sanders.
So anyhow, we're going to be talking about COVID-19 and St. Lucie County's response to it, but we're also going to be talking about the other things that are going on in St. Lucie County, or some of the events that aren't going on that have been canceled. We'll talk a little bit too about what to do with the kids that are home on spring break and next week's extended spring break, and how the learning is going to continue to take place, and we'll have some hints and suggestions about how to move along. But meanwhile, we have Erick Gill, and he is the Public Information Officer with St. Lucie County. How are you today, Erick?
I'm well. I'm healthy.
Yes. That's the answer of the day.
Yes, it is, yes. And I'm actually calling from our Emergency Operations Center, which is an odd time for me to be here. Usually I'm here in September during hurricane season, but we are in a partial activation of our Emergency Operations Center. Mainly, and yesterday the Board of County Commissioners, or the county administrator, declared a local state of emergency following the federal and state issues of that, regarding the coronavirus or COVID-19. And a lot of people are concerned what that means. And essentially, local governments do that so they can expedite resources that we may need to this area. You know, we do it before a hurricane hits so we can make sure we may have water or tarps or whatever supplies we need to rebuild. In this case, you know, we're doing it so that we can put any resources we may need up to the state level, whether we need masks and gloves for our first responders or the hospitals or additional testing kits, those type of resources. So that's essentially why local governments declare a state of emergency even before the emergency happens. You know, as of today, there are no confirmed cases in St. Lucie County, but our county health administrator has said we expect that number to, we expect a case to happen here. You know, the more tests that are done, the more likely we will see cases on the Treasure Coast.
Well, there have been some people who have said, well, we don't have any cases, but how do you know how many people have been tested? And that's the thing is, you know, Cleveland Clinic has stepped up, and they're starting to do drive-through testing and testing on the Treasure Coast. But previous to that, it's you have to qualify to be tested.
Correct, yeah, and because there are a limited number of tests, not just locally, but nationwide. So just because somebody has a sniffle doesn't mean we're going to do a test. You know, there is criteria, and when those testing sites are set up, you know, if you have an extreme high fever, shortness of breath, you need to call your primary care physician, and then they're going to have a screening process that the Center for Disease Control has set up. You know, have you visited a high-risk area? Have you been in contact with somebody who has been confirmed with coronavirus? And then the test will be given. And then there's also considerations taken in for those that are at risk, if you've got a compromised immune system or you're elderly, you know, especially those in assisted living facilities or nursing homes. So, you know, it's a matter of, you know, flattening the curve. So when we talk about, you know, that's been a popular term during this event. We don't want everyone to get sick at once, which is why the recommendations are in place of extending spring break, canceling schools, limiting social gatherings to 10 people or less. The longer we can spread out people getting sick, the less impact it's going to have on our hospitals and our medical professionals.
And that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting that you reference hurricanes too, because when over the last few years of hurricanes, of the active hurricane season, we've developed a hurricane vocabulary, and it kind of looks like we're going to have a virus category,
a pandemic category,
yes, of vocabulary as well. A lot of the things that people, I think, are concerned about is about the things they don't know. And so that's one of the reasons we're doing the show today. And then next week's show is going to be similar, except for I'm going to be joined by County Commissioner Sean Mitchell, and we're going to be talking a little bit more because it's an ongoing situation. And, we're recording this show now, and next week there'll be a lot of new information to share. So let's talk about the most up-to-date information and the fact that, you are providing St. Lucie County updates, at least Howard Tipton is, and the Division of, is it Emergency
Management?
Management, Ron Parrish is coordinating updates from St. Lucie County, and you're recording them, and they are very, very informational. That's the first thing that I want to kick off with, is talking about those updates, because you don't have to be there exactly when that video update is made, because you were recording it and saving it where?
They're posted on the YouTube channel, but they're also, we created a landing page for information. It's on our website. If you go to stlucieco.gov/COVID-19, or if you just go to our website, stlucieco.gov, right there on the homepage, you'll see the COVID update, and you can click that, and there's text, and there's also a video. When we're activated for hurricane season or a hurricane in our area, we do daily briefings 3 times a day, 8, noon, and 5. We won't be doing that for this event, because we don't think that information is going to change as much between 8 and noon and 5. And we may not even be doing daily briefings. Right now, we're looking at maybe twice a week, because it takes a lot of resources to bring all those players together, and we also want to keep that social distancing. So we don't really want everybody driving out to the EOC like we would for a hurricane in the event that someone was exposed. Our Emergency Operations Center runs our 911 call center. So, and that's operated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't want to expose any of those staff members to illness, whether it's the flu, a simple cold, or COVID-19, because we can't afford to lose any of those staff. So we haven't quite figured out when those briefings are going to be, but we will be sharing that information with the public. So you can always go to our website and get the information as it's updated. If we get new recommendations from, we just got one from the state that they're canceling jury trials or suspending jury trials. So we're putting that information on our website as well.
And the level 2 activation of the Emergency Operations Center means it's not like crisis level of emergencies, but you will have public information lines that are operational weekdays from 8 to 5, so people can call in and get
we're looking at
information.
getting some weekend hours for that as well, because we know this will go through the weekend. It's a matter of pacing our resources. Unlike a hurricane, you know how fast it's moving, and you can anticipate how long it's going to impact your area. With this pandemic, it's a bit of an unknown, so we don't want to exhaust our staff resources and burn everybody out in the first 2 weeks if this thing drags on longer than that. So hopefully by Friday we will announce some Saturday and Sunday hours for that information line, which is 772-460-HELP, and folks can call for general questions. They're not medical professionals, so you can't call and say, "Is my doctor?" We don't have all the information. We don't know if your individual primary care provider is open, but if there are major closures to county facilities or programs, or once more
or
testing
offices.
sites are open, offices, they're kind of answering those general questions. If you have concerns, if you feel sick, again, stay home, avoid public areas, and call your primary care physician.
The Florida Department of Health actually has a 24-hour hotline and email, so we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But that would be something that you can call with specific health questions.
Yes, absolutely.
And then let's talk for a minute, because a lot of people get their information from social media, and Well, fortunately and
And
unfortunately.
yes.
Yeah, it's like a good bad situation because the
Trust but
social
verify.
yes, exactly. The information is more widely available, but you need to check the source to make sure it's coming from a reputable source.
Absolutely.
And so some of the reputable sources would be your county agencies, your health department, your state agencies, and some of the social service agencies, such as the United Way and 211, who
Yep.
are providing you information. There's
Absolutely.
a lot of helpful links that are out there too, and as we're moving toward the school district doing online learning beginning on the 30th, on March 30th, they're going to start they're transitioning the teachers, who some of them have already taught online, and the others are getting training next week for teaching online, and then beginning the following week, the schools will be offering online classes. But let's talk about some of the governmental businesses and the changes and what to expect, what's open, what's closed, what may not be open for long, so you should go now.
Absolutely.
For before we started the show, we talked just for a minute about the library, because you have some changes underfoot with the library, and when I have downtime, and when my family has downtime, other than watching TV, we really like to read books. And certainly that's a way to go out and do things. And the library, actually, also beyond books, they have videos, and they have music, and there are other things that you can borrow at the libraries too. What is the situation with that?
We're going to be announcing later today, probably when I get off the phone with you. Starting tomorrow, we have already suspended all library programs, story time, some of the tech training classes they do. Again, just to limit that social distancing. But starting tomorrow, they're going to be closing library buildings. People can still check out books. You can, with a library card, you can check out your book online and then have it picked up. Even if they say you live close to the Morningside branch and the book you want is at Lakewood Park, you can put in a request for it. They'll send it from Lakewood Park to Morningside and let you know when it's ready to be picked up. And you can make arrangements to go to the library, and staff will come out and deliver it to you to your car. We'll still have staff answering the phones at the library, so if you have technical questions. But we're doing that, again, to limit the amount of public coming into that facility, because then it cuts down on the amount of staff we need to sanitize those facilities. And then we can direct those resources to areas like the county administration building, the tax collector's building, clerk of court, buildings that the county helps maintain, where people still need to physically go in and do business with. So that will be starting tomorrow, and there are a number of resources, like you said, that the library offers that are still available online. They have a service called Freegal with your library card. You can download 5 MP3s a week and stream live music every week, 3 hours a day, and build your own playlist so you can have music to listen to at home. There's some learning resources online. We have one called PowerSpeak, where you can learn a new language. So if kids have an extended spring break, make them learn a little second language while
That's
they're
a
home.
great idea.
Or study up on the Spanish that they're taking in school, or French, or whatever alternative languages they're taking. There's online resources, too, that with your library card, where you can get local newspapers, not just local, but global newspapers. So you can get online without having to pay a subscription, and you get free access to newspapers and magazines to read as well. So, and there's ebooks and audiobooks as well.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the ebooks and the audiobooks, because say you've got some downtime or you're working from home, you can also listen to an audiobook, and whether you're trying to paint part of your house or whatever, it really makes things go quicker and can be educational or entertaining if you've got an audiobook. And one thing St. Lucie County has done in the last maybe 6 months to a year is they switched their ebook to the cloud, and now you have way more books to choose from than you used to.
They do, and I'm a little biased. Library is one of my favorite departments that we have. Like you, my family, my wife took our kids to story time every week, and they're always so easy to work with. They get me their information well in advance and make it easy for me to publicize them. So they're always one of my favorite departments.
Yeah, I notice a lot of those famous Erick Gill press releases come regarding the library because they're easy. It's easy to promote the programs that they're doing. So as far as the library goes, programs are halted for now. Any type of in library learning programs, but you will beginning probably later this week, you'll be able to order them online and then pick them up at your nearest library, or just download an ebook and read it or listen to it. There's a number of other office buildings and governmental offices that have made some changes too, and I know the tax collector's office is one of them.
Yes, the tax collector, which I don't work for, but they have changed their operations. They're going to 50% staffing levels at their facilities to help protect exposure to their staff. So there may be longer lines, and they're encouraging folks that if you can renew your fishing license online or renew your tags online, please do so instead of having to physically go in. And I think they've also suspended driver's license for now because you have to physically go in and do that. And I do know they limited, and it's changed, so I would recommend just go to the tax collector's website, and we have a link to that from our site, the COVID page, for their latest updates, because that's the thing. The recommendations have been changing since last Friday. It was no gatherings of more than 2,000 people. And then it was down to 1,000 people, and then it was down to 50 people, and today it's no gatherings of more than 10. So it is ever evolving, but all of our government agencies are doing whatever they can to keep essential services open. We're still picking up garbage. The toilets will still flush, the water will still run, but you may see some additional lag times in services when you're going to, if you physically have to go into an office to get a document because of the limited, stretching out the staff to make sure we protect our staff and the public.
The beaches and parks right now remain
still open. Yes, we got no plans. Again, this is a good time. The kids are out of school. Go for a hike. St. Lucie County has more than 11,000 acres of nature preserves with 42 miles of trails. You're not really at high risk as long as you're, just you and your family, and you're not going with, 15 other people to go out and take a hike.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, literally take a hike, yeah. Or, one of my new passions is I like to play disc golf. We've got some disc golf courses. So if you got some old Frisbees lying around, there's one at Lakewood Park Regional Park. There's one out at the Gordy Road Preserve just west of the 95. And Port St. Lucie has one at Rotary Park. So it's a little windy, but other than that, it's a perfect day to play a few rounds.
Yeah.
And our golf course, Fairwinds Golf Course, is remaining open as well. But we are looking to close things like, the aquarium. Again, I got a high traffic area. The Oxbow Eco Center. The Education Center will be closed, but they've got 3 miles of trails there in the woods out back that you can still go for a hike.
So in some of those cases, the buildings will be closed, but the trails
Correct.
Or the surrounding areas won't be.
Correct, yeah.
And even
Some
with the
parks,
beaches and parks,
Yeah, we're going to be limiting some restrooms. Now, obviously, beaches will try to still keep restrooms open, but some of the nature reserves and parks, we may not have the staff going out there to frequently clean as often as we would or should and when there's a pandemic. So we'll be closing those facilities. So just keep that in mind when you're going. A lot of our parks, a lot of the preserves anyway are pack it out parks. So if you want to go bring a picnic and have a picnic out there, we encourage that, but just make sure you take the garbage with you.
But utilities will not be impacted. Police
No.
services won't be impacted. Waste and recycling. And
Correct.
You will have a number of public meetings that are going to be canceled, but you're still going to have county commission meetings?
We had one this week. We took a lot of stuff off the agenda just because there were some public hearing items, and let's not have 50 people show up for this public hearing. It's not time sensitive, so we can push it back to a later date. So we've done that, but our planning and zoning meeting for this week has been canceled or is being rescheduled. So there's nothing urgent on there that needed to be done. So we're limiting that, and there's been talk even statewide about can you still do a public meeting and not have the public there, but give an opportunity for them to comment via telephone or video conference. So we're waiting for the state to give guidance on that, whether or not that violates any kind of law, sunshine laws. And we're not trying to do that, but we certainly, I saw Martin County this morning held a meeting, and they had all the chairs pulled out and had, a couple chairs placed down every 6 feet from each other so people maintain that social distancing, which is good, but you still worry if someone were to be a carrier of coronavirus and they touch the door handle on the way in. Those are the kind of concerns, and which is why state and federal officials are recommending, if you're sick, certainly stay at home, but if you don't need to be out, enjoy this time with your family. Stay home if you can.
And as far as other closures or other things that people can do, I know that Comcast has announced that they're going to have a special 60-day free internet connection.
I saw that.
So that's big.
That is. I'm going to ask my provider, AT&T, to offer me that same deal because otherwise I'm switching it back to Comcast.
Yeah. But a lot of people who don't have online internet services at home, they might use the library or use governmental offices to access. This way, for the next 60 days, they'll be able to access it for free. And then, as things get canceled, like, for example, the Havert Finn Center is closed, and people won't be able to have activities there. But how many really activities are you going to have at the Finn Center that are 10 and under anyhow?
10 and under, exactly, yeah. I mean, unless it's a private birthday party or wedding, and even those, I know some weddings have been canceled. Yeah, I know the clerk's office, I think, is not doing weddings because sometimes the clerk court will do weddings, and so they've scaled back that as well. Again, it's just that practice that social distancing, one of those new terms we need to add to our glossary.
Well, a lot of the locations that deliberately try to do things to drive traffic into their location are doing the opposite now. And that includes bars and restaurants.
Correct.
Now, the governor, that's the other source of good information. The governor does regular updates too, and those are available online. You don't have to just listen when he makes his update, and it seems to change daily as more things are changing and services are being cut back and people are being more limited. But one of the things that he did earlier this week was close the bars as of 5 p.m. But a lot of the bars, like some of our favorites, still are offering, they're selling their beer. Like, for example, if they have canned beer like Sailfish Brewery does, you can call and order your beer. Or what are those like little personal growlers cost that are?
The Crowlers.
Crowlers,
with
yeah.
C. Yep, Crowlers and Growlers if you have
Yeah.
the big jugs like me.
So,
Yeah, and then, there was, obviously, we've been fielding some of those calls too, confusion-wise. If you own the restaurant, does the restaurant have to close? Or, no, they're recommending restaurants to limit their capacity by 50% and keep 6-foot distances. But somebody says, well, my restaurant also has a bar, so I cannot have the bar open. It's not really about the bar. I think the governor's order was worried more about nightclubs and like small venues where there's bands and you got 100 people in there sitting next to each other or standing side by side, potentially spreading that virus. So that was the reasoning behind the 30-day closure on those type of bars and nightclub venues. Restaurants can still stay open. They're encouraged to push more takeout and keep the 6-foot distance. And, it's that fine line. We don't want to cripple the economy and put anybody out of business. But at the same time, it's about, extending the threat and limiting the exposure to folks.
and really that's the bottom line, is limiting the exposure. Now, there are a lot of things that we're dealing with, and as far as, the students being out of school, we talked about the fact that they are going to be moving toward online education, and we'll be talking to the school district probably for an update sometime next week. But we do know that they plan on having online education beginning March 30th. And for the students who don't have internet services, of course, Comcast has offered the free 60-day, and probably the other providers are going to follow behind on that, we hope.
Yeah.
But
or, it may be a thing, and this is why you would activate your emergency operations center. So if there's a need in the community, say, we need to get a mobile classroom somewhere, maybe it's not something the county may have the resources to do, but we can at least reach the right agencies that have those resources to get those, those services out to the community. So this superintendent's been in conversation with our county officials, and they've had staff, visit or call into our EOC, because again, we're trying to limit the number of people that come out here to make sure whatever resources they need, we can make sure we get them.
Well, one of the other things that the kids need is, especially the kids who are on free and reduced lunch, is meals, because they're
Absolutely.
used to receiving meals at school. And some, for example, some of the kids that are served each week with the Boys and Girls Club clubhouses are used to getting an evening meal courtesy of the Treasure Coast Food Bank. So you've got all of these kids and families, and then who are used to getting free and reduced lunch and dinner, not being able to receive it. And then in addition, you have the shortages in the stores, and you might have some people who have had to, that they work hourly and as needed on shifts, and because their kids are home from school, they have to stay home with their kids. So there may be even greater need. And the community has done an excellent job of stepping up in several different areas as far as coordinating some type of food services.
I know the school board has set up sites, and that's something we're looking at with our employees too, as we scale down operations of public facilities like libraries or the Oxbow Eco Center or the aquarium. We don't want these employees to be out of work either. So can we reallocate their time? And maybe, some of them are going to be helping box food at the food bank. Some of them may be helping deliver meals to the Boys and Girls Club. Some of them will be out here answering those public information lines. We have a temporary animal shelter that we rely on a lot of volunteers to go out there and help. Maybe we can put staff out. I'm trying to volunteer so I can go out there and play with the dogs all day, but I think they want me behind a computer.
It sounds like a good plan, though.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes. And, maybe you'd be able to do it and bring your growler with you, and then the life would be great.
It would be.
But right now, it's C.A. Moore and Northport K-8 and Treasure Coast High School this past week who've been serving the meals between 11 and 1, and they serve them drive-through style. So you pull up, you get your meals. They don't want the kids to come there and eat there because that would defeat
Sure.
the whole purpose.
Exactly.
But I know the school district is going to plan on expanding that for this coming week and the following weeks as the need arises. And then Boys and Girls Club has been able to involve the community and also the Treasure Coast Food Bank, and they have very strategically located 4 different clubhouses that since they don't have the kids there, they're able to do some sanitary food prep, and they have volunteers coming out in shifts of no more than 10 that are serving drive-through foods at the location between 4 and 7 p.m. for the evening meal. And there's 2 clubhouses in Port St. Lucie and 2 in Fort Pierce. And you can look online at the Boys and Girls Club, or you could look at the food bank's online information to get some information about that too. So in addition, the Fort Pierce Women's Club have stepped up, and they're doing a drive-through pickup meal also. And they're doing it on certain days. That hasn't received as much publicity because they don't have the social media gurus that the Boys and Girls Club do. But the Fort Pierce Women's Club, you can check out their website, fpwclub.com, and find out. And you can also donate. They're also doing some pancake breakfasts and kind of bagging them up and giving them to people who drive up as well. Between their pancake breakfasts and their spaghetti dinners, their goals to feed 1,500 people every day. So they're stepping up as well.
Awesome.
What are some of the other things that we need to know about St. Lucie County? Again, just going over the details of, the gatherings and community events. No more than 10 is the recommendation. So many of the government buildings are discouraging in-person visitors.
Yeah, a lot, like you said, just to recap, a lot of, not just St. Lucie County, City of Fort Pierce, City of Port St. Lucie is all on the same page. We're making sure we still provide all the essential services, water, sewer, garbage pickup. We're still doing building permits, and our code enforcement officers are still out there on the road, but, just know that it may, during this time, take a little longer to get that tree removal permit. And we may be, we're looking at a scenario at the county building where you don't have to actually go into the building. You can email it, or you can drive in and drop it off, and we'll have a tent outside the entrance facing the 25th Street side of the building. You could drop your documents off there and go, and then, staff will call you. If you have a piece of property that you want to develop, you can still talk to a planner of the day. We just encourage you to do it by phone or email, at least in these next few weeks, rather than driving in person to handle those tasks. And I know City of Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie are looking at those same scenarios. City of Fort Pierce already a few months ago launched a drive-up permit application window, so they were a bit of ahead of the curve, or they had the infrastructure set up to do that. So we're all working together and coordinate. We have daily conference calls with all local governments and constitutional officers to make sure we all know what each other's doing and any unmet needs that we may have, and pulling together. And I think it's important that you do that in your neighborhood too. Check in if you got an elderly neighbor, check in on them, see if there's anything they need. There's no need to run out and buy the entire aisle of toilet paper and bottled water. Supplies are still continuing to come. I understand, people get concerned if what happens if I get quarantined for 14 days at home, but
14 days of toilet paper is not 6 12-packs, though.
Yeah.
So let's be reasonable.
Exactly. And you have a network of friends. They can come, not leave it on your doorstep and ring the door and walk away, and you can come out and get it.
And the
you
stores
can't leave
are,
the house.
yeah, the stores are still doing delivery services, and actually some of the restaurants have started doing delivery services as well. But there's a number of places that you can call for help, and one of my favorites is 211 Treasure Coast.
Yeah.
because there's information about all of the different needs that you might have. The schools, not just the public schools, but also the colleges are moving toward online too. So, you may have more than, you may have your children who were away at school coming back home and having to deal with that as well. There's a lot.
Absolutely.
At least the weather is great. At least it's not the thick of the summer where things are really hot and everybody wants to stay inside. You can, play outside. You can go to parks. You can go to beaches. And I know there's been a lot of talk and worry about, the economy and small businesses. And so whenever you can, to help small businesses, I know that every retail store that I have an online relationship with has recently sent me information on how they're dealing with COVID-19, and some of the women's stores have just sent information that they're closing their brick and mortar for a period of time. The gyms are closing or have closed.
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
But, we have beautiful weather out there. We live in paradise, and, we have the opportunity to go out and run and walk and
play golf. And,
play golf.
Or
and
just golf, if you're like me. I can't really swing a club and hit a ball, so
disc golf.
I just like throwing things.
And, even if you're not really good at any of those things, you can do it. And the advantage is if you're outside moving around, it's probably going to make you feel better psychologically. I know that that the United Way has posted some information too about small business help and economic help.
Absolutely. And the Economic Development Council also of St. Lucie County, their website has resources set up through the governor's office. There's small business loans available, zero interest rate for businesses that may be seeking some economic hardship because of this. And there's also a survey that they're pushing out because they want to find out what the impacts are. And
the important thing I think to remember is that this is a tough time, but it's temporary, and to have patience and to help your neighbor and wash your hands. I think
we didn't mention that, but
well, it looks like the health department is not going to get a chance to call in today. I know she had a call earlier, but to go over some of the health department suggestions, because you don't have to work for the health department to know that, is wash your hands, wash for at least 20 seconds, avoid touching your face, which is it. Have you seen some of the online videos of people trying not to touch their face?
Yes, and I had this conversation with our sign interpreter when we did our briefings, because part of sign language, you have to touch your face. And she said it's difficult when people are like, well, the sign interpreter keeps touching their face, and they have to. So, but trust me, she washes her hands, and she is, aware of the risk.
With social distancing, if you're around other people, try to keep 6 feet between you and possible. But also the avoiding hugs, handshakes, large gatherings, and close quarters. The whole no hugs and handshakes can be an issue with some of us extroverts who just automatically see someone they know and really like and go to hug them, and you have to know to back away and come up with some new ideas of. I saw people touching elbows or
tapping shoes. That's another new one too.
Tapping shoes or waving with a big smile on your face. But also, if you do feel unwell, instead of just showing up to your health care provider, you should call first, especially if you have a fever, cough, or shortness of breath.
And you mentioned that with the testing too. I know that's something that they've talked about too. these drive-up testing places, it's not like anybody can just drive up and get you have to pre-qualify and pre-screen and schedule that because, again, they don't want to overwhelm the system that we have.
But if you feel like you have the symptoms of the coronavirus, and you can call your health provider or call the health department and talk to them about it. And, I've also seen some different charts talking about the symptoms of coronavirus compared to cold and flu, and some of the most common things with the coronavirus are fever, a dry cough, and aches and pains and sore throat,
shortness of breath, and tightness in the chest. Yep.
So those are the things to watch for, and then call your healthcare provider. Again, don't just show up in their office, because if you should have COVID-19, then you've now exposed everybody in the office.
And everybody on your way there.
Everybody on your way there. The other thing to consider, too, is if you are quarantining yourself in place, what that means. Because evidently there's some people, and we read about and hear about some situations where people were quarantined and yet they managed to infect their whole neighborhood. I'm talking about a particular case I read about in up north in the New Jersey area. So being quarantined doesn't mean just staying home from work. It means
correct, staying inside your house and not leaving. Yes.
And your family and friends who are quarantined with you, the same thing,
Correct, yeah.
So the gloves and the face masks, the gloves are helpful, and certainly antibiotic and antiseptic. The lotions are helpful to carry around, like bring your own.
Yes.
And then some of the surfaces that are common to everybody, like, banisters on a stairway or elevator buttons.
Sure, doorknobs, yeah.
Doorknobs, things that are commonly touched. And, you just really can't wash your hands too often. There's a lot of interesting things that you can find online, and I appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to call in, but let's just go over just quickly again how people can get all the information from St. Lucie County. You have the regular video updates that you have that are posted on your YouTube channel.
They're also on, we created a COVID-19 page, so it's stlucieco.gov/COVID-19. And as we get information from the various local government agencies, we're putting that on that page. We also have links to, the health department, the CDC, or other governmental agencies. But it's a good recommendation if you need to go, if you're going out to go to a program, call ahead first to make sure it's still happening or that office is still open. We talked about, keeping our golf course open. We may adjust the hours and, open a little later or close a little earlier to give additional staff time to wipe down all the golf carts. A golf course is not a place it's not a public building where you're touching a lot, but you still go into the clubhouse to get your tee time or go use the restroom facility. So we need to make sure we're sanitizing those more often than we normally do. Not that they're ever dirty, but, after every person comes through, we need to make sure we wipe them down. So we may be adjusting hours of some facilities, and that's not just us. That's statewide and nationwide at this point. So before you go out, it's always a good idea to call and make sure that the situation hasn't changed.
Well, I know one of the things that I've seen that the latest was that the governor had announced that the tolls would be suspended on toll roads. What about travel? I mean, when we had hurricanes, you could get in your car and go up to North Carolina and just pretend like there was not a hurricane at your house in Florida.
Yeah.
But
you can't really do that.
You can't.
They're not recommended. You can, but it's not highly recommended. And it's interesting. I was talking with another reporter today about hurricane season, and he said, "What if this thing stretches into hurricane season?" That which I can't imagine. It would
my
cause
goodness.
some, hopefully but that's why we're putting these measures in place now.
Right.
Because again, that term "flatten the curve," we want to extend this thing out so not everybody gets sick at once, or it drags out longer than it should be. If we can contain the spread earlier, we're not dealing with this in September when there's a Category 2 hurricane off our coast. Because then you can imagine the implications of trying to open shelters and evacuate people, and it would be a nightmare.
Put 200 people in one
Yeah.
room. Yes, it would.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, it would. Well, and in my lifetime, I don't remember anything like this happening before. So
No, me either. I mean, in my 40s, I am a huge college basketball fan, and this is my most favorite time of the year, and it is ultra depressing to not be able to watch college basketball right now.
well, and Greg Wyatt was just talking about that a number of the sports channels are putting on replays.
It's not the same.
No, it's not, because you know how it turned out.
Exactly. Unless it's a Duke game from '92 where they beat Kentucky, then I'd be happy. But other than that, I'm sure Greg's never seen this in his lifetime either as a sports reporter. When you shut down spring training and delay baseball season, and there's no professional sports going on, it is unprecedented.
It is, and we'll look back on this time as a good experience for dealing with anything else that could happen in the future. We're trying everything new and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and it's not called shelter in place with the virus, but it is with the hurricane.
Yes.
Quarantine in place.
Quarantine, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wash your hands.
Like you said, you look around the world. Look at Italy. I mean, they're having some really tough times now. I mean, they've limited travel, period, and we're not at that point yet. But we don't want to be at that point. So that's why the feds and the states and local county governments are taking the actions that we are taking.
Well, I know at the Early Learning Coalition, we're located in the hospice building, and they are now screening visitors who come in. They take everybody's temperature, and then they ask them the questions. And there's some of the buildings that you might access, even if they still are open to the public, you have stricter requirements for getting there. And if you don't feel well and you're not sure what it is, it's a good idea to stay home.
Absolutely.
So Erick Gill is the Public Information Officer for St. Lucie County, and he's been giving us an update. The website, again, is St. Lucie.
St. Lucie. Yep, stlucie.gov/COVID, COVID-19.
And there are links to all the governmental offices from there, too, so you can see what is open, what's not. Most of the governmental offices, even if they're not open to the public physically, are still available for
Correct. Services are still
services. And it's awesome. If something like this had happened 20 years ago, before we had all the online services that we do, it would cripple our society even more. But we're lucky that we do have some things already in place to make it accessible online and through the phone, and people know how to do it. And they have everybody. You may not have a computer at home, but you have a cell phone.
Yes, most people have smartphones, so
Yeah.
you can do the same thing.
So you can really access a lot of different things. Erick, thanks again for taking the time to talk to me today.
No problem.
I know
My pleasure.
you chatted a little bit longer. Good luck, and we'll talk to you really soon.
You too. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Thanks.
what you need to know about COVID-19, you can tune in to WPSL and we'll have updates. And next week's show, we'll have County Commissioner Sean Mitchell with us, and we'll have the latest update on what's going on with the school system and with food for all and online updates. So thank you for listening. This has been the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. We'll see you next week with more.